Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Facebook chats. I'm here today with a very special guest, Trevor Maxwell, the founder of Man Up to Cancer. Hi, Trevor. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, Sophia. So glad to be on here with you. Yeah, I'm Trevor. I am a stage 4 colon cancer patient, survivor, thriver, whatever language you want to use. I've been facing cancer for 2.5 years, and I live in Cape Elizabeth, Maine.
Let's just jump right in here. You said you're a stage 4 colon cancer survivor. What was the impact on you and your family when you received your diagnosis?
Yeah, so it was a total life asteroid for us. I was 41 when I was diagnosed. Wife, 2 kids. Our girls were 12 and 10 at the time. And I had I had a couple grandparents that had cancer in their 60s, 70s, and there was some colon cancer in my family, but nothing what we call young onset, right? So like anytime you're under 45, it's considered young onset for colorectal cancer. So I had no frame of reference at all. I was just feeling super tired. So it was like several months I was just exhausted and didn't think anything of said, well, I have a busy year and family, probably just tired. So I didn't go see my doctor. And I hadn't gone to the doctor in like years. So by the time I finally went, turns out that I was really anemic and that I was losing blood because of my cancer. And I went for a colonoscopy and got diagnosed. And all of a sudden I went from relatively normal life of a 41-year-old dad to being a stage 4 cancer patient and fighting for my life and everything that comes with that. So yeah, everything's been an adjustment, for the kids, for me, for my wife, for our friends and community. Just a huge shock and a huge transition. So we'll get into this a little bit, but that's kind of the genesis of Man Up to Cancer, was that I struggled mightily with the diagnosis. Like I went into a mental health, really dark place with my mental health, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. And that was actually what first led me to the Dempsey Center, was getting to a place where I really needed some help.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible story and how far you've come. So you mentioned that's kind of when you found the Dempsey Center. How did you find us? What was the initial?
Well, I think the first thing was just getting to the point where, I got diagnosed with colon cancer. I had colon surgery. I had chemo, and turns out it had already spread to my liver. So then I had a first liver surgery. I've had another one since then, but I was going through all these surgeries and treatments, and like my whole life was pretty much derailed at that point. And when I was going through the mental health piece of it, I felt very isolated, depressed, anxious, all that stuff. And I think just getting to the point where I needed help and admitting that I needed help and saying like, I can't do this by myself. So I literally I think a friend had said, you should check out the Dempsey Center. And I was like, okay, tell me about that. I went online, I looked at it. And literally one day I was like, man, I need to talk to someone today. Like I need to connect with others who have cancer. So I went on the Dempsey Center site, and this would have been probably like the summer of 2018. I was diagnosed in March. This was around that summer. And I found a group. There was a group that day. It was like guided meditation. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go meditate with some other cancer patients because I need help. So I went to this group, and it was me, and I think there was like 5 or 6 other patients / survivors, all women. I think most of them were breast cancer patients or survivors. And they see this, like, I'm 6'4", like 240 pounds, like big dude wearing all my, my hat and stuff. And I walk in, and they're like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to fit in here? And after an hour with that group, after doing the meditation and like bonding with them, they like embraced me as like their brother. Like it was amazing. They just let me open up, and all of a sudden, like, it was like everything that I had been holding inside for a while was just like I'm just bawling and like sharing my story, and these people are hugging me. And like, I know that's not every guy's cup of tea, but for me at that time, it was like a real community of people who were going through the same crap, regardless of whether it's breast cancer or colon cancer. And to get that sense of community and support was totally life-changing. And that was my first introduction. And so then after that, I started coming to the weekly support groups on Wednesdays, where I met, all kinds of other patients, survivors, and others impacted by cancer, and found the Dempsey Center to be a real second home for me during the journey that I really needed.
That's awesome. So obviously it really was what you needed at that time. And besides that support group, what was like your initial experience with the Dempsey Center? How did you feel when you first came there?
Just like I said, like welcomed, and no expectations, like no one was pressuring me to do anything specific for programming. It was just, hey, here's what we have. Here's what we offer. Here's what might interest you, like nutrition, exercise, counseling. And one thing that I really needed at the time was I really wanted a counselor, because I'm a verbal processor. Like I needed to sort of process my experience and what I was going through. And I don't really want to, yes, I talked to my family and my wife about it, but she's not a counselor. Like it's not her role to hear all that stuff from me. And as a man, I didn't want to be that husband who's just pouring all this stuff out and dumping all this emotional crap on her. So I'm like, do you guys have individual counseling? And sure enough, that was right when Patty was starting as doing individual counseling. And I'm like, can I do that? And I got in with Patty, and she's been my counselor ever since. And honestly, can't imagine what my journey would be like without having that counseling and that place to go where I can just navigate the psychological stuff, the mental aspect of cancer, which to me has been way harder than, I've had 3 major surgeries, chemo, I'm now on immunotherapy. I've gone through some stuff physically, but the mental piece has always been harder and still harder to this day.
Yeah, that's incredible. And for people who have tuned into the other Facebook Lives, we did chat with Patty. She's incredible. So I'm so glad you were able to meet with her.
Hey, Pat. I hope she's probably going to be watching this. So thanks, Patty.
Well, so kind of talking a little bit more about your treatment, you mentioned that you felt a little isolated during that time. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's I guess, so when I was starting out and thrust into this world of surgeries and treatment and everything else, I was kind of looking for some role models out there. And Dempsey Center has been fantastic. But what I found was, that the clients primarily are women. And so I was starting to have conversations around, why aren't more guys getting involved in these services? What are the barriers? And I was looking for role models too, to talk about, what are other husbands and dads facing with this mental health piece of cancer? And what are their thoughts? And I was looking to connect with other guys. And I found that online as well. I'd connect with a lot of groups online and get tons of support there. But again, it was predominantly female. So that's when I first started. So that sense of kind of isolation as a male facing cancer kind of was clicking in. And I was like, what, how is it possible that I'm the only dude going through cancer that is struggling? That can't be. There has to be a bunch of other guys out there who are kind of suffering in silence. But I felt like I didn't see very many others reaching out. And so that's really when I started getting my head around this problem of men and isolation in general. And sort of what I was seeing with my own experience is that men kind of suck at cancer. We get diagnosed and then our brains are it doesn't compute. This is not a problem that I can solve super easily. So I'm just going to shut down, check out. And also we're taught from an early age, a lot of us men are taught to just, like I say, man up, which usually means be tougher, don't burden others, suck it up, and, be strong and silent, right? So all these things are kind of brewing in my head, and I'm like, this doesn't work. That old idea of manning up doesn't work for cancer. You can't just toughen up and go it alone. Most people I know, if they're really being honest, have to get help along the way, whether it's neighbors, your community, support group, whatever help looks like to you. Even if it's people coming over and helping with chores and stuff, I was debilitated by some of my surgeries and I had plenty of help and I was willing to say, hey, I need this and I hope to pay it back one day. So that issue of isolation was kind of hitting me personally. And that's when I really started feeling what can I do? As I started to get better, and my mental health started improving, I started to think, what can I do to help other men and their families sort of go through this and avoid isolation? And that's when I started really like digging into the science behind it and finding out that it wasn't just my experience. Like, it is true that in general, men, when faced with a cancer diagnosis, tend to isolate more than women. And that's borne out by some studies around this issue. And it kind of makes sense too. I mean, we kind of know that men, and we're generalizing again, but that men have a hard time just going to the doctor. Like, maybe they're afraid what they're going to find out, or maybe they just think they don't need to go to a doctor because they're fine. But that's the same theme, right? So that theme just kept coming up, and I started digging into it. And that's really where Man Up to Cancer come from, is that it's kind of a play on words, because what I'm saying is to man up to cancer means, yes, you can be tough and bring your toughness, like that's great, but you're also going to need to be strong enough to accept help along the way. And that's why, and that's what I love about the Dempsey Center, is that it's such a resource for so much that you're going through in cancer. For that, if you're ready to reach out and connect and access that support, the Dempsey Center is a fantastic resource.
That's awesome. For anyone who's just joined us recently, I'm Sophia. I work at the front desk at the Dempsey Center, and I'm here today with Trevor Maxwell, the founder of Man Up to Cancer. If you have any questions for Trevor or myself, you can pop them in the Facebook comments. We'll make sure to get to those at the end. So Trevor, this Man Up to Cancer program is incredible. And it's made to support men dealing with the impact of cancer. Tell me about how you've grown the community thus far.
Yeah, so the key for me was getting the help through the Dempsey Center and other supports to get my mindset right, improve my own mental health. Because even though I'm still a cancer patient, I'm still in treatment, I still have active, cancer that I'm fighting. Once I got my mental health better, then I knew that I was ready to reach out and help others. So at the end of last year, I'm thinking this whole issue around guys and isolation and the problems that brings. So let's just go into the 3 top problems that isolating when you're going through cancer causes for men and women too, I'm sure. But when I focus on men, these 3 things are the worst consequences for isolation. Number 1 is mental health. If you isolate when you're going through cancer, you're more apt to have depression, anxiety, all those mental health challenges that come with feeling alone. Number 2 is relationships. So when men isolate, they tend to, go into their man caves, and they're not engaged in their relationships with their family, their spouses, their kids, their community. And then number 3 is medical outcomes. So if you're isolating, you're not connecting with other patients. You're not going out and seeking more opinions about your disease, because if you're just holed away, then you're not reaching out to learn that stuff. And so when you don't learn about your disease and you don't seek all that medical information and opinions, your odds of actually beating your disease go down. So when I talk to other guys, those are generally 3 big reasons that I say not to isolate. So Man Up to Cancer kind of was forming around those thoughts. And then right around the start of the new year, I was writing a book around it because I'm a journalist. I spent 15 years as a journalist and then in public relations. So I started writing this book. Really, my wife, too, was encouraging me the most. She's like, if you help guys through this Man Up to Cancer idea, you're not only helping them, you're also helping everyone who loves them. So that's what I always say is, Man Up to Cancer isn't, yes, it's a guy thing in that it's an isolation thing for guys, but it also involves everyone connected to them. So started writing this book, and then I realized, like, man, we should have there should be a community around this, like a group or something. And I, being, in my early 40s, my social network is on Facebook, where we are today. So, my kids make fun of me for being part of the old guys network, but that's where we connect and live, right? So I said, I'm going to start this Facebook group, Man Up to Cancer, the Howling Place. And I came up with that idea because, to me, I had been reading a lot about wolves and fascinated by wolves and how they take care of one another. And this idea of a wolf pack where you're never alone and you always take turns at the lead. And if a wolf is sick or injured, then the other wolves rally around that wolf and they don't leave him behind, right? So my whole idea is that if you're going through cancer, we should have this wolf pack for you where you always feel like someone has your back. So started this thing, called it the Howling Place, and I had no idea. Like my expectations were, I wanted to do a website with resources, Man Up to Cancer. I wanted to do a podcast, and the group itself was kind of like just a little piece of it. And I was like, maybe I'll get like 25 or 50 guys to come in, and we'll have this thing going. But my buddy Joe, got a shout out to Joe Bullock from Durham, North Carolina. He and I had been connected. So he is a colon cancer survivor, and we had been connected through a different group, Colon Town. And he saw what I was doing, and basically, like minute one, day one, was like, "I'm on board. What can I do? Let's rock this together." And I'm like, "Great, come on in." And as it turns out, Joe is like one of the biggest. He has one of the biggest hearts. He is an amazing advocate, like the kindest friend you could ever imagine. And his Facebook connections in what I call Cancerland is like, he knows everybody, like who has cancer, impacted by cancer, like all these connections. So he like put out the wolf signal and was like, "Come on into this new group we have." And literally within like the first couple of weeks, we had like a couple hundred guys from all around the country and all around the world. Like, so now it's it's August, and we have 700 men in the group from all around the US, and I think we have like more than 10 countries represented in there. And it's just all men. It's survivors, patients, and caregivers, so guys who are caring for someone with cancer. Any man who's impacted by cancer is welcome in the group. And it's kind of been mind-blowing. So I gotta, that, and that's been great for me. Like, I've gotten so much from that group. I've never felt more supported. So Man Up to Cancer since January has morphed into the private group, the website, which is public to everyone, and then the podcast, which is the Man Up to Cancer podcast, which we launched last month in July. And that takes my journalism and interviewing skills and like all that stuff and just connects me with guests. So I think we're on show number 8 or 9, and I have 6 other interviews that we have lined up. So I'm connecting with other survivors, caregivers, men and women, dealing with this issue or issues around men and isolation and that problem. So as you can see, I get pretty fired up when I talk about it. So it's kind of like Man Up to Cancer is those things, and it's my call to action to men to not isolate.
That's incredible. I can't believe how fast it grew. That just speaks to the need,
Right.
That's incredible. So we're really excited because we're going to be collaborating with you on a new offering at the Dempsey Center. Can you explain your new virtual roundtable for us?
Yeah. So I am pumped because the whole time that I'm developing the Man Up to Cancer stuff, a lot of it was just kind of took on this national flavor. Like, I'm connecting with people around the country, but I'm right here in Maine. And I was always thinking, like, how can I connect with people right here in my backyard? And how can I also help the guys in Maine that are close to me? So one thing that Wendy Tardif, the executive director of the Dempsey Center, and I started talking about was this issue around how can we help men? And then I had the great fortune to be able to speak with Patrick Dempsey and the board of the Dempsey Center late last fall. And Patrick and I and some of the board members were bouncing around these ideas as well around how can we get more men in Maine to access the supports available to them and really, bring them out of their isolation. Because we know that there's guys in Maine that could benefit from the Dempsey Center. We just got to figure out how to reach them and what can we do for them. And so the concept of doing a men-only group, similar to what I've been doing with Man Up to Cancer in the Facebook group, but have it be through the Dempsey Center. So a true collaboration where it's the Dempsey Center and Man Up to Cancer offering a group for men. This is specific for men who have cancer as a patient or survivor. And, then COVID comes along and everything kind of changes with support, right? Because I was used to in-person support groups. But now it kind of makes sense. And what we arrived at was, let's just do this men's group, and we'll do it twice a month. We'll do it the first and the third Tuesdays of the month at 6 p.m. through the Dempsey Center. And we'll just go on there and see if we can get some guys talking. And so that's what we're gonna do. It's we're calling it the Man Up to Cancer Virtual Roundtable, and we're gonna meet twice a month online. And we hope to also have off-site get-togethers. This is really important to me, and we can start doing it safely, I think, even in the era of COVID, but hopefully down the road even more so, where we get out and we go to dinner and we get together for hikes, maybe fishing trips or fishing exhibits, sporting events, just stuff that we like to do in general that can get men sort of out of the house, out of the man cave, and out, like, just having a good time, having positive experiences with guys who get it. And so it's going to be a little different. It's not a clinical support group. This is not, it's more of a social thing. So we're going to talk about our lives and we're going to share about our cancer. Yeah. But we're also going to share about things that we're going through in general and life. And it's a place to make friends that are going through similar experiences. So I'm just really, really excited about this. We're going to have our first meeting online on September 15th at 6 p.m. And so we're going to share the link, hopefully. I think it's available to share. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think you can go to dempseycenter.org now and check that out, or contact the Dempsey Center and ask them about the Man Up to Cancer Roundtable. So yeah, I'm super excited to meet more men in Maine who are facing cancer, become friends with them, offer support, and also receive support along the way.
Awesome. And I can tell you just from personal experience, the Dempsey Center right now is buzzing with excitement about this group. It's going to be so great, and it's definitely something that we've needed for a long time. So thank you so much for bringing it to fruition for us.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you. It's just the perfect partnership of my mission and the Dempsey Center mission. And it totally makes sense. And just for those who are wondering, like, why does there need to be a man-only space? Sometimes I get that question, right? Like, it does feel exclusive because it is, but there's a reason for that. Men going through cancer, from the emotional side of it, I've experienced this, and I know a lot of men experience issues around embarrassment or shame or some of the tougher mental health pieces of this. And sometimes to share in a co-ed group can feel intimidating or feel emasculating even. Like, sometimes there's just guys might be looking for a guy space so that they're not worried about feeling exposed or judged or whatever. And this is on us. Like, this is our own hangups, right? Like, we just feel like, let me just speak for myself. I feel like there's some things, especially involving, the physical aspects of cancer or the intimacy effects of it, sensitive topics that I might not feel comfortable with talking about in a co-ed group, but I do feel comfortable talking about it in a male group. And I think that's a similar thing for females going through cancers. I think there's a need for that woman-to-woman space as well, and we have those. Like, there are those, definitely. I think that what you're seeing with the response to Man Up to Cancer is there haven't necessarily been man-to-man spaces around cancer. So that's kind of my explanation as to why the men-only piece of this. But again, to circle back on Man Up to Cancer in general, it's not exclusive. Like, my podcast is for the audience, I would say, is for men impacted by cancer and anyone who loves them. And we get a lot of interaction on social media, online, through the podcast, from women and from relatives and from community. So there's a piece of it that is for guys only, which is a sharing space. And then there's the larger Man Up to Cancer community, which is really all of us.
That's awesome. Trevor, do you have any advice for men or men in your life who are currently dealing with the impact of cancer?
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind right away is just be kind to yourself. Like, you don't get a guidebook when you get diagnosed with cancer. Like, you don't get this thing that, like, charts your path through it. And you're going to have ups and downs along the way. Like, sometimes in the media, you see this image of, like, the perfect cancer patient who responds to all these challenges with positivity all the time, and, like, everything's great, and, like, you conquer all these challenges And I feel like that's unrealistic for most of us. And if you look like that out there, like great, like more power to you. That's amazing. But most of us look more like me, where you have your ups and downs and you go through struggles. So when you're going through a struggle with cancer, which is probably going to happen, be kind to yourself, and then use the reach out, connect with, even if it's just connecting with a buddy, or or connecting, if counseling makes sense to you, use that. If maybe just listening to a podcast or whatever, if that makes you feel better. But there are tools out there. There are things out there that you can do to avoid that isolation that I'm talking about. Because don't try to go it alone, is what I'm saying. Like, if you try to go it alone, it's just fraught with so many negative consequences. So not going it alone doesn't have to look like one specific thing. It can look different depending on who you are, but at the core of it is just that you don't have to go through this by yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. I want to let our viewers know that actually we've had Lisa post the link to the roundtable in our comments. So if you want to scroll down and see that, we'll probably also post it on our Facebook at some point, just to give everyone that direct link. But I don't think there are any questions from our viewers. I'm so happy to have met with you today. This was really amazing. And I'm so excited for our new group and to see what comes out of this.
Definitely. It's been great to meet you. Thank you for everything you do. And hopefully we can maybe safely meet in person someday. I got to get up to Lewiston. What is the facility, like the center up there, doing for are people there working? Are people coming into the center yet?
That's a great question. We're currently only offering virtual services, but our staff is in the office part-time. So we're hoping to be opening back up for in-person services sometime in October. Oh, wow. So we're planning on having people coming back soon, but we're going to make it as safe as we possibly can, and make sure that everyone is taken care of. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a vulnerable community health-wise. Like, you have to make sure that everything is totally safe, and at the same time, I know that everyone is longing to see people, even if it's just across the room, right?
Yes. That is honestly something we've all been able to relate to, is we miss everyone so much, and it's just so hard not being able to see their faces every day. So
oh my gosh, right?
It'll be really great to be back in person, and definitely I'd love to meet you in person as well.
Yeah, and I gotta say, so the Dempsey Center has done amazing pivoting and offering the things online, because at first I was like, it's so hard not to see Patty in person, but to be able to do my counseling on virtually has been huge, because I've needed it for sure. So I want to say thank you to everyone at the Dempsey Center who has continued to provide the services, because they're so important, and to find ways to provide them in this totally unexpected and new time that we're living in. So thanks to you and everyone there who does such amazing work.
Well, thank you so much, Trevor. It was a pleasure to talk with you today. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.